first point, Minister. I'm going to travel back to 6 years back. Some people say it is really not true, and there was some form, a little bit of an argument to say that it was not a white paper, or it is just a concept, and it went on to different point of understanding. I'm referring to 2013 white paper, Singapore's population projection to reach 6.9 million by 2030. I mean, obviously we ask about populations because when there are more people, you can sell more house and sell more, and it can be of useful to them. Yeah. But on the other hand, we also realized we hit a snag when some of the infrastructure was not ready or was not keeping pace at the growth. And then there was a little bit of a pullback in terms of some of the foreigners coming and giving them some permanent status and so on. But my question here is this: are we on track to reach the 6.9 million by 2030? And is there any further restraint in terms of the PR status or allowing more people coming into Singapore? Because at the end of the day, we like it or we not, we still need, with the growing population, to have a strong group of people or the population to make things economies of scale. Can you comment on this?
Thank you very much. Very heavy first question, no? Dangerous one. Protect me. Now I can understand why you are interested in this question. In fact, a couple of weeks ago, quite cheeky, one of the persons I know in real estate texted me about the situation in Hong Kong. So he said, oh, that means we have a lot more property to sell here. I said, I don't answer this question, very tricky, you quote me out of context. Now, I gave actually an update on this topic last year, actually in March last year. You are quite right in saying that we have to plan for the future, and it is all the more important for the government to plan because infrastructure, for example, public transport, for example, housing provision, if these things we don't have a sense of how many people we are trying to accommodate, then you potentially create a lot of inconveniences to people in terms of, not being able to get onto train rides and so on. It's such a major part of our city living. So when we published the population white paper, it was not that there was a target population we wanted to reach, but that we have to plan for a possibility that if the population grew to that level, whether we had the infrastructure to support it. So that was the purpose of it. So it is not a target, but it is a planning frame. You need to have that in mind. Now, if we look at the actual population growth in the last few years, then what we can say with quite a lot of confidence is that come 2020, the population is unlikely to go beyond 6 million, most likely below. And actually, even by 2030, it is most likely to be quite well below 6.9 million. Okay, so whatever it is that we have planned for infrastructure, for city living, most likely those things can be achieved. So that part of it, I hope answers your question. Now, one of the things that we therefore have to do is that if population isn't growing at the speed that we planned for, but it's also not growing too low, it is maintained at quite a stable level because the shape of the population is as important as the number, right? We need to make sure that the shape of the population creates the opportunity for a vibrant economy. It creates also a certain sense of balance, cohesion in the society. Those things are also very important. Now, then what do we do with the economy? With the economy, One is, of course, with businesses, we have to encourage them to be more manpower lean in the way they operate. That means restructuring. The other very important part is that fortunately, we are situated in a region that has got a lot more people than we have. The whole of Southeast Asia is 600 over million, and these places are also places where our businesses find lots of opportunities. So I was quite cheered to hear you talk about how PropNex is also active in Indonesia, in Malaysia, also in Vietnam. This is the direction for many of our companies, many of our people. They are taking their activities to other parts of Southeast Asia, which, when you compare to many parts of the world, is actually a peaceful, stable neighborhood, gives us the foundation to build up economic linkages. So, to our friends here today, what we will be able to achieve is a stable population, some growth, and will provide the foundations for a sound economy, because it's not just residential type of transactions, residential property type of transactions. You also have commercial property, you also have industrial property. So you're not only interested in the population per se, you're also interested in whether we will be able to support growth, because that also provides you with other avenues, for property transactions. So looking at the next decade, I think what we can reasonably look forward to is quite stable, quite steady population development, nothing to be too, no major upheavals, quite a steady kind of development. I hope that's helpful to you.
Thank you so much. The only thing that maybe to reiterate the point here is, it is not a target, but it was a concept paper. It was a planning. It was a planning, for infrastructure. But having said that, we still say that probably by 2030, well below 6.9 likely, but probably above 6 million. Nobody knows, but the guess is it should be. 2020 is below 6 million, but by 2030 above 6 million, but may not be 6.9, but that is the unlikely. Okay, thank you so much, because I think what is our concern here is with the existing cooling measures, and then we have the Great Southern Waterfront, and we are talking about huge amount of development. But if we don't have increasing populations, we do not want to be in the situations where the property market tank or transactions are not there. There is we totally support sustainable growth, but there must be enough demand for what we do. If not, it will be a great concern. I'll move on to the next question, Minister. This has got to do with MediSave. Ask this from salespeople, because we've asked this feedback. The questions actually I'm raising is on behalf of some of the salespeople and leaders who have posted this to us. When I talk about this MediSave, I totally think it's important, but some of the things that people are not so comfortable, I'll give you one or two things. When the MediSave is, what is the challenge right now that we are facing here is why salespeople are having trouble to pay is because the MediSave is computed based on last year's performance. Last year, the agent may have done 100,000, 200,000, and because of that, he's competed to pay by end of this year. And then this year, market cycle is totally different. And this year, even the payment from the developers can take 4 months, 6 months, 8 months a transaction. But his obligation is have to pay, if not, his next year license is affected. So there's a 3 years period. Last year's performance, payment this year for next year's survivability. So this is where the salespeople are stressed.
Minister also stressed now.
No, I think maybe Minister, you can explain a little bit more your pilot project. If ever we want to adopt this, one of the things that I'm always very worried, we show that we are the first in the industry. I don't want to be the first that my salespeople say, "Wow, you don't agree with Minister Just, you're so happy, you want to just make everybody happy," and then you say, "Commit as they earn, whatever it is." So, how does this pilot concept, is it ready to announce or is it not ready to announce yet?
I just announced it.
Okay. Okay. So
Thank you for
details.
your interest in this.
Yeah.
And it's a serious question. I fully understand. In fact, one of the reasons we decided to experiment and try out this pilot was precisely the problem that your CEO just highlighted. But first, to reassure you, we noticed that among financial planners and real estate agents, actually the ability to make the Medisave contributions once a year has been quite good. In fact, taxi drivers we worry about a lot because theirs is much more cash. Yours, because it's daily, the takings come daily and then you spend daily. When in fact we notice that the other professions, there's a bit more planning. People seem to have buffers because of the payment cycles. Exactly the same problem that you highlighted. By the time you're supposed to make your contributions, your income stream is not the same as the year before on which your obligations are calculated. So, regular employees don't have such a problem. Regular employees, this month, when we used to be in the army, before the army base your salary, they already help you to make part of the contribution. Their employer share plus your share goes already into CPF. Whatever goes into your bank account, you know you can spend it in full and not worry too much about it. Because even your housing, your mortgage payment, mostly paid for by CPF. So you have freedom. You don't get stressed over it. But we noticed that for self-employed persons, including real estate agents, that is not the freedom you have. That is not the peace that you have. So that is why we decided to try out this contribute as you earn. The concept is similar. In the case of a regular employee, before your paycheck, I help you to make your CPF contribution as well as, of course, the employers. In the case of self-employed person, there is no employer. You are the employer, right? So you make the CPF contribution. In future, if, for example, we open this to the private sector, this scheme to the private sector, and if, for example, you believe that it will be helpful to you, then before the commission is paid out to the agent, you can use, nowadays, very sophisticated, at the back end can already calculate what your CPF contribution rate should be for Medisave. And then, therefore, instead of, say, $100, I know your commission is not $100, but let's say for the sake of example, out of $100, maybe $4 of it goes into the CPF. Something like that. Something of that order of magnitude. Rather than, at the year end, you're presented with, okay, this is how much you earned last year, and this is the total you have to contribute to your CPF. We think that if we make this mechanism available, every payment a little bit goes in, every payment a little bit goes in, it has already been settled. I don't need to think about that. But we, of course, understand that this concerns, it will need your help because the commission comes through you. It's not paid by the client directly to the agent, it comes through you. So for you to come on board, that must be something that is also a good arrangement for you. Not too much admin, right? If it's administratively very cumbersome, then to you it's, what a terrible use of time, right? So we have to make sure this system works well. We have to make sure there are no glitches. We also need to test it out to see that whether the calculation is correct or not. Because you don't want to have a system which ends up over-collecting. Then at the year end, you've got to go and make the tally and then refund. And I don't think self-employed persons will feel very happy that you over-collected and then you got to refund them. You got to make sure that it works well. But what I can assure you is this concern is very much prominent in our minds, we know, and that's why we thought, what is the practical way to help? The practical way to help is, how about if we created a system that works quite like what a regular employee does. Those in regular employment, they never worry about their CPF contribution. It was already done. So if we can make this available to you, it's not ready yet, but if you are interested, I'd be very happy to organize, to brief, your team, those that are handling the admin, and then we'll see. We have not decided to make it available to the private sector yet. We think government better try it out, make sure the system works well. But if there is some feedback from our self-employed persons providing services to the government and say that actually this is something that you like, it's very helpful to them, then we can talk to the private sector and say, how about, do you want to use it also? So please be assured, our objective is mainly to test it, make sure it works, and then if it's something that people find useful, why not extend it? It's not something that we will say you must use.
I think, it's very good that Minister, you took time to explain. That's what I wanted, because when you said pilot, I was trying to feel it. I'm quite open to explore this, not because we want to be the first to create something. Let them pilot it with the civil service or the government. But having said that, as long as a salesperson is not subjected to more than what he's supposed to pay, and instead of paying one lump sum, and if you pay as he earns, and even if it could be better if it's optional, if you can choose either you want to adopt this scheme or you want to choose to pay at the year end, I think these are very possible, viable, because all I'm looking at is value add to the people and the process. So thank you so much. We will seriously consider together with our management.
We'll keep this point about option in mind.
Yes.
I understand. People prefer options. Understand.
Medisave CPF. Some of the concerns salespeople have here is when the Medisave amount is fulfilled, 54,000, 55,000, and yet requiring us to pay in the name of Medisave, but channeling it to special account and ordinary account, no doubt the interest is much higher, seems quote unquote not right, because it is being collected in the name of Medisave. So the request here is it possible for self-employed to fulfill the amount? Can they not pay? The continue not pay? I'm sorry, I know it's a tough question. So
which year are you inviting me back? I understand, but the treatment for self-employed persons is no different from regular employees. Same. So same. Yeah. So you are just as valuable as the regular employees. What we really want to do is this. Now, Medisave, you see, our social security system is very different from many other countries. When I meet with my international counterparts, they are firstly very amazed that our social security system tries to help people to own a home. In many countries, they say, what? The pension being used? Well, it's our own pension, right? It's the CPF. Employer contribute to it, but yeah, part of your pension can be used to own a home. Non-existent in many countries. Then part of your pension can be used for medical, also not a feature of many other countries' social security. We are quite unique in the world where our CPF tries to help individuals meet three basic needs: a roof over your head, the ability to take care of healthcare expenses, especially the big bills. The small ones we think people mostly can manage on their own, and if not, there's help available to them. And then thirdly, to have some spare cash to use in retirement. So our system actually tries to fulfill all three. Rightly speaking, as in many other systems, pension contribution is not different between regular employees and self-employed persons. They all contribute roughly the same amount to their pensions. In Singapore, it's quite unique. Self-employed persons only contribute towards the Medisave and not to the OA, ordinary account, and to the SA. So rightly, actually, if it's on par with the regular employees, it wouldn't be just the Medisave. Yeah. Now, the key, of course, is that are there sufficient reasons for also the OA to be filled or topped up from time to time? Answer is yes, it can be used for housing and it also earns a decent interest rate. I will keep your request in mind. You see, what I say yes to you to, the regular employees will ask for the same. And then our philosophy becomes different already. Yeah.
Okay, I hear that. I know it's not easy, but I appreciate that you said that you will keep that
So
in
they
mind.
clapped to your question, they didn't clap to my answer. I need to feel the love too. I appreciate your understanding.
Thank you so much, Minister, for being candid about it. At the end of the day, I understand. I mean, when you explain it from a pension perspective, the other way to say is that by right, the freelancer should pay more than the Medisave towards contribution. I mean, to contributing
What has
towards...
been very interesting is this. You'll be surprised. There are people who write to me, to my colleagues in the CPF board. Sometimes they write to the media too. I know I have already put in everything that the eCPF board allows me to put in, but I want to put in more, can or not. And we also have to say cannot. We have to be fair. Because obviously you did your sums and you see that it is actually a very good deal, but we have to be fair. The interest that you earn, that there's obviously a subsidy involved, otherwise how can it get this kind of interest that's more than the market? The whole idea is that share it with the people who need it the most, not the people who, well, they obviously have done their sums and we would encourage them to consider other investment options, such as buying a property with your help.
In fact, many of you would have been amazed because I was surprised because I turned 55 last year and I took advantage of it. What I did was, I mean, it may be, many of you may be aware, but for me it was so busy and I seldom go out. Most of my job, my PA does. So, but this time I have to travel all the way to Bishan CPF, trying to understand, because I'm 55. But instead of, I did something, for some of you may think is right or wrong, maybe sound crazy. Instead of taking out money, I put money. And because, you know why? Especially I've used in my property few $100,000. And I took the advantage and issued them a check for few $100,000, which I can take out anytime and yet earn higher interest rate. Because even fixed deposit, I must put time frame. This one no need time frame. I thought not a bad deal when I turned 55. Yeah, so this is, I mean, then you must have surplus cash. I think most of us, if you work hard by 55, we can take such an advantage in using CPF. It has been
You are
positive.
precisely the group that I worry less about. So your CEO's cleverness, I hope, inspires you, and you will spread the love by inspiring other people to do likewise. Thank you.
Minister, exactly the time slot for us to say is time's up, but I still going to ask you one question. I think you can help us. Maybe it is not directly under your, actually I've got 7 questions, but I got no choice, but this is the last question. I mean, AML, anti-money laundering, and again about this terrorism financing. This has been a big issue. But somehow we felt, majority of us felt, it is being shoved to us. I mean, it's not that I choose to ask popular questions so that every time I say they show me love. No. But the point here is this. We understand AML. We understand the terrorism, money laundering risk. We understand this. But we also understand probably Singapore is under the fair trade and US and whatever it is to implement these things because they do not want Singapore to be a place where these things can take place. But why I say that here is this. Today, salespeople are subjected to these forms, which we call it as CDD, customer due diligence requirement. But the honest truth, the customers don't give a damn about it. Because simply there isn't much education about it. And then it falls on the responsibility on the salesperson. And what we are more worried here is this. It started off with CDD for clients, especially for foreigners or foreign purchase kind of thing. And then there are plans to even extend it to HDB purchase, rental purchase, even room rental of 500 is akan datang. We be pre-warned. We say that, what's the logic behind? We understand the consequences. We want it to be responsible, but we want a rational way of doing things. To start with, why we felt that it's been shoved really down hard on us. If this is so important, every agency, big and small, running to find solutions to solve. We have English if you want to check on transactions, or we have got bankruptcy search in order to do so. If this is so important, why can't the authorities and the ministry spend some kind of a platform, portal, IT transparency that all of them are subjected to do it, and the consumer log in and do it, and that should be the future. Not manual filing and coming to the companies and the agents to be responsible. I think we are far back on this. My request is not an answer, but seriously to see how we can resolve this. That's all.
Just now it says here, time's up. It's a serious question. And I can appreciate the amount of paperwork, and you're right. Sometimes you will have customers who are not going to be very cooperative and won't want to tell you very much. Or they may be suspicious why you're asking them all these questions too. So I completely understand that. It is a world that we live in that has become more uncertain and more complicated than we'd like it to be. For many years, there was no need to do AML and counterterrorism, financing, CTF type of tracking. But it is quite unfortunate that we are also plugged into an international financial system where the response is not always a happy one in terms of how the regulations have been piled up. So some years back, not real estate agents, but I recall that this topic was also raised in Parliament. The banks, for example, feel very stressed that in terms of customer due diligence, in terms of their suspicious transactions reporting obligations, it has gone up in terms of their documentations, and all of this is costly. The compliance takes time, it takes money, takes time away from doing the revenue generating activities. But if we don't do that, then what happens could be worse for us. Internationally, there's something called the Financial Action Task Force. It is not of our doing, it is of the doing of an international community of financial regulators. And they have a practice where they will go and audit countries, and they will ask Monetary Authority of Singapore, what are all the things that your financial services institutions are required to do? And they go down the list. And over time, they realize that in the Singapore context, it's not just the financial services companies that are at risk of having the money flow through them, illicit monies. So they then extend their reach and say that we want you to also take a look at your non-financial services players, for example, your property transactions. Your point about whether we can find ways to reduce the paperwork, whether we can streamline the process is very well taken. We should. I'm not overseeing this, but I appreciate that this is a difficulty. Let me bring it back to my colleagues who are in the Monetary Authority of Singapore, who are overseeing anti-money laundering as well as counter-terrorism financing, and see whether we can fulfill these requirements that our international counterparts have put on us. And if we were not to be able to fulfill those obligations, then we will be sanctioned. And when we are sanctioned, what it means is that they will somehow find ways to stop money flowing through Singapore, to put it in a very simple way. And if the money stops flowing in Singapore, we are all the worse for it. We won't even have those transactions. So do we deal with the transactions and find better ways of dealing with these kinds of paper documentation requirements, or do we risk the flow not coming through? If the government were not to pay attention to this and one day the sanctions apply to Singapore, I think you will be complaining to me, and your PropNex quarterly session will be asking a different question. Why didn't the government do something about it? And now causing us to not even have the deal flows. So it will be a different kind of problem. But let's take it up in the best Singapore way, which is be practical about it. Find a way for you to fulfill those requirements in as easy a manner as possible. That I can share with you, I can commit to you, I will bring back to my colleagues to discuss. Thank you very much. Now I use up all my time. It's now back to 000.
Thank you so much, Minister.
Thank you for raising them with me.
Really appreciate
Thank you
that.
for
I
your
got no
work.
further
I really
questions,
appreciate it.
mainly because of time. Yeah.